Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Mariam Adio from Grade 6R Fairview International School, Kuala Lumpur. Welcome to our 5th webinar session that has been curated especially for the PYP Grade 6 students. Together with me is Ms. Elaine Wong, the Assistant PYP Coordinator of FISKL. She will be helping with answering your queries throughout the webinar. The focus in today's session is on our transdisciplinary theme, who we are. We will be inquiring into the nature of the self, beliefs and values, personal, physical, mental, social, and spiritual health, human relationships including families, friends, communities, and cultures, rights and responsibilities, what it means to be a human. We have inquired into who we are in our second unit of inquiry last semester, where we explored the different traits that make up leaders. We even inquired into the impact that leaders have on us. Today's webinar's focus is on leaders in times of pandemics. Who we are also looks into the rights and responsibilities. Leaders are the frontiers of their team. So this makes me wonder, what are the rights and responsibilities leaders have towards others? This leads to our main focus today, where our central idea is the decisions and choices leaders make can have a profound impact on people physically, mentally, and socially, especially in times of the current pandemic. I would like to introduce our first panelist, Ms. Cynthia Wong, who is a consultant trainer and team coach at Y-Star Solution. And also our second panelist, Ms. Karina, is the general manager of Terry and the Cuts. Since the emergence of COVID-19, many leaders of nations are forced to make difficult decisions, from having to decide on the movement of people to the closure of economic sectors. The leaders are facing a huge dilemma in everyday decisions. Before we start the session, I would like everyone to have the key question in mind while we are listening to the webinar. How does leadership play a vital role in the times of a pandemic? With that, please welcome Ms. Cynthia to our PYP webinar. You may take the floor.
I want to thank the organizer for giving me a chance to share. Okay, let's talk about this topic, right? Learning from world leaders during the pandemic. I would like you to imagine, if you can, what it's like to be making decisions on which thousands, if not even billions of people depend on you getting it right. If things go wrong or you delay deciding, people can actually die, in this case, and your decisions affect the livelihoods of thousands, of hundreds of thousands of people, right? And there can be hungry people as well who has got no food to eat and really struggling to put food on the table. So huge economic disruption is already happening. Mass layoffs is already happening. Business closures is already happening. So really, you have to actually be very, very careful with your decisions, right? And on top of that, effective action on your decisions depend on winning the support of millions of people. Even though you have enforcement on your side, but people need not follow unless they're caught, right? Like we learn in Malaysia, right? So really, success and failure hinges on you really getting the support of your people to follow your leadership. And it actually demands quite a lot, because we are talking about sudden, unsettling, unprecedented changes to daily lives, being locked down and not have much freedom, right? So this is the context that we are looking at. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so we will look at the stories of 4 great leaders, right? And then examine what makes them great leaders, some factors that we will look at. And then we'll talk a little bit more about agile leadership, which actually all of the global leaders can apply to know what to do when they don't know what to do. And you too will learn this, and I think you will like it. Next chart. Okay, to better understand the context, right? If you look at some of the key countries in the world, right, the fatality rate, for example, for us to have a sense of comparison, right? There are really 80,000 deaths in US, 6% fatality rate is high. The highest is in UK and Italy at 14% fatality rate. Why is German at 4%? We will look at that because the European countries, some of these countries named here, actually had hundreds of thousands of cases, more than 100,000 cases altogether. Each one of them had that. But yet Germany managed to reduce the fatality rate, right? Yeah, so we are looking at these 4 countries basically. These are the fatality rates are the lowest, among the lowest. South Korea is also low, but we are not going to cover South Korea. There's just not enough time. Yeah, so so you take a look at the figures, and you can come back to this later. You might even want to take a screenshot of this so that you can understand the amazing impact that good leaders have on their people. Yeah, next slide. So we'll be looking at Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany since 2005. So she has 15 years experience. Jacinda Ardern, the current Prime Minister of New Zealand since 2017. Yeah, and Erna Solberg, current Prime Minister of Norway since 2013. And finally, Tsai Ing-wen, President of the Republic of China, or what is more commonly known as Taiwan, since 2016. Yeah, so we'll be looking at these leaders in detail, a little bit more detail. Next. We'll be looking at 4 factors, 4 factors of agility. To be agile, you actually need to have mental agility, be able to wrap your head around the issue, look at things from a different angle, and know what to do. Yeah, and then in terms of results agility, it is not just getting results, but it's being able to inspire people to work together with you, because you can't get results alone. Yeah. And change agility is just being very open to change, willing to try new things, looking at things in different ways, and keep experimenting or innovating until you find new ways of handling things, right? And people agility is being able to really inspire people and handle people well and get them to understand where you're coming from, but it starts with understanding firstly where they are coming from, or what is impacting them. What is the impact of this pandemic on them, for example, right? So we'll be talking about these 4 factors. Next slide. Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about mental agility. Actually, all these leaders, even though this particular chart kind of split out the essence and managing uncertainty, under mental agility, I want to cover these two dimensions. And for them to be able to manage uncertainty, actually they need to understand what is the essence of the issue, right? So in the case of Angela Merkel, she did the lockdown, and what she did that most of the European countries did not do is the mass testing, the really widespread testing, because as early as January already, they heard about this virus. They weren't hit yet, but they already developed a testing mechanism, and that was done in one hospital, and all hospitals got the approach. It was shared, so they were able to do widespread testing. And early testing means that they can actually take better care of the people before it becomes fatal. Those who have positive COVID-19 result. And she also understands, it's not just about keeping people healthy and not dying, but it's also about helping those who are affected financially, economically, helping businesses and helping those whose income are affected, right? So she actually had this short time work program, which she instituted in the 2008 crisis, and she reactivated it, whereby the state pays for 2/3 of the salary of employees, those who are working as employees. And she also had a financial package for businesses. It is about 1 trillion euros or $1.1 trillion as a fund to help businesses cope during this time, right? And okay, let's look at Arden, right? Arden actually really understand that it is key to nip it in the bud while there are few cases, right? So when there were just 6 cases, she was already requiring returning Kiwis to just quarantine themselves for 14 days. And just a short 2 weeks later, when the cases went up to 150, no deaths yet, she implemented complete lockdown, right? That is very, very harsh. And her approach is basically, we know we need to do this fast and hard. That is her approach. And it worked because by day 11 of the lockdown, the curve was already leveled to 1-to-1 infection. Yeah, so that things are under control. And she actually told the people, look, don't think I'm being too severe, right? 6 cases already asking for such actions. She said that Italy at one time also had only 6 cases, but look at where they are now. So she really gets it, what needs to be done and what's the issue, yeah? Erna Solberg actually also did similar things to what Angela Merkel did to manage the uncertainty in terms of health, in terms of the economy, businesses, and the working people, right? So she actually locked down as well, compensated businesses at cost levels, and gave good benefits. I don't know what they are, but she gave good benefits to those who are out of work in the short term, right? I also particularly like the fact that she really gets it's a global issue, because she actually contributed funds to UN, United Nations, and asked other countries to do so as well, to help developing countries that are struggling to get the pandemic under control. Because she knows if they don't do that, we are very connected in this world. That's how it all started anyway, in one place, in Wuhan, right? And it spread to the other parts of the world. So she really gets it. And I really like her ability to be generous as well, and not just think of Norway alone. Yeah. And finally, in terms of President Chai, she is really unique in the sense that she already started action on December 31st, when the first case was announced, right? Even China didn't take action yet. WHO didn't say it's a pandemic, WHO, World Health Organization, but she already was scanning people coming in from Wuhan. And just a couple of days later, she had 124 measures in place. And the results speak for itself. She has only 400 over cases with only 7 deaths, although they are so near China, and traffic is high between the two countries until they lock down. Of course, they close the borders, right? So she really gets it. You need to nip this in the bud. Then she doesn't even need lockdown. That's the amazing thing, right? Because things are under control from the beginning. Yeah, as soon as she can, she took action. Next. Next chart, please. Okay, let's go a bit more into people agility. Really, after you wrap yourself around the issue, the next thing you need to be able to do is to communicate with the people. Why is it that you are asking them to do what they do, right? So let's talk about Jacinda Ardern first, right? She used Facebook Live videos, and she not only gave very clear directions, very strict directions, but she also explained to them why. She provided the meaning, right? And she actually explained that we need to nip this in the bud. So if we do it quickly, we don't have to stay locked down so long, right? And she also explained how the cases are going out of control in some other countries because they are not taking it seriously. So she provided the meaning very clearly, very seriously, but yet she showed a lot of empathy, right? By saying that, yeah, you know, she knows this is hard, right? And she does it from her living room, and she showed slivers of her own personal life on the impact on her own family. And she kept telling them, it's okay, we can do it together, because if China can take care of their 1.4 billion people, surely New Zealand with our team of 5 million can take care of all the 5 million. So she was a brilliant communicator, right? And that really inspired the people, which I will talk more about later, how she inspired the people. And I like Erna Solberg. I mentioned this before, because she has other countries in mind, right? Possibly, you know, Norway can be safe alone, you know, while things are still happening from other countries. Maybe you just don't allow those countries to travel to Norway. But she has this great big heart, you know, to actually look at the whole world, see it as a global issue. And I don't hear of any other leader doing that, yeah? So that is really amazing. So if we want to succeed in terms of people, we need to actually think about helping others as well. Yeah, when they do well, we do well. Next slide. In terms of change agility, yeah, this is a huge new challenge, right? Where really it has never happened before. So the challenge is, yeah, you know, what do? You know, you've never done this before. So I like the way that Angela Merkel actually is very innovative in the way that she turned the most, their hotspot, the place where they had the most infections, right? She turned it into a real life lab, involved top virologists in the country and top 40 medical students to study how does this virus sort of move around and get people infected, so that they can look at measures, more preventive measures to stop the contagion. Yeah, and this is still ongoing. We don't know the results yet, but at least she is doing something, because she realized that the Germans are also getting a little bit feeling down, because their lifestyle is really affected, and they demand more of their government. So she's looking into that, and I think she's the only one who has this kind of a lab approach to handling this pandemic. Yeah, and I really love the way that Jacinda Ardern is handling this is blocking my view. I'm not sure what is this. Okay, yeah. All right, so Jacinda Ardern actually is very scientific as well. She worked with scientists, and her own strong, empathetic leadership really helped in leading change. There are detractors, especially on the economic front, from small businesses who claim that they are the victims to her very strong approach. But then she said, you know, how can we have a healthy economy if the people are not? Right? So, and then she lead by example when she and her cabinet ministers and chief executives of public services all took a 20% pay cut. Yeah. So she's certainly also very comfortable, because she actually talks to the people, a whole nation, regularly, I think daily, right? Updating them on the issues from her living room in casual clothes, you know, and she'll just talk to them, always smiling and always encouraging, but yet very firm. So she's definitely very comfortable leading change. Yeah, next. Yeah, this one about results agility. To get results, you need to be resourceful. And Angela Merkel, I find, is the most resourceful, because she got together all of the university medical departments. So basically all of the smartest medical brains together to form the task force to look into what to do and decide what to do. right? And then she started something called Corona Taxis, leveraging doctors. And the doctors actually wear the complete protective suit and go and visit any potential case, anyone not feeling well. They go to the house and they take the temperature or whatnot and examine how serious it is. If it reaches a level of severity, then they send them to the hospital. If not, just quarantine at home and keep monitoring. So that really helped to take care of the entire Germany, right? So that was very, very resourceful of her. And I already mentioned that she involved the top virologists and medical students in the lab, right? So she is extremely resourceful, yeah. And I think of all the four leaders, because of her style, Jacinda Ardern is very inspiring. Her be strong, be kind messages, look after the vulnerable, sacrifice for greater good, really help the people to not just look at their own needs, but look at the needs of their neighbors and everybody else. So this is not so much about self. So she helped build solidarity that way, and also with her team of 5 million take care of all New Zealanders message. That really emphasized shared responsibility, and is so inspiring that she gained a lot of fans according to the article. Yeah. And her approval rating is shot through the roof. Actually, Angela Merkel's too, it went to 89% at one time. Yeah, so both of them are very highly rated for the way they handle the pandemic. Next. Next slide.
If you don't mind the interruption, Miss Cynthia, I can see that the leaders you have mentioned all seem to share similar traits in terms of their personality and grit. Not to mention they are all ladies. Go girl power. We can see that the leaders are proactive in taking preventative measures to slow down the cases in their countries. But we would like to know, there are reports of news that certain countries are not taking the same preventative measures. What do you think about those leaders and their decision making? Does that make them bad leaders?
Can I comment on the girl power first? Actually, the research does show that women have a slightly higher level of people agility, and this pandemic does require a lot of cooperation from the people. So their ability to empathize, and they have a naturally nurturing sort of like motherly kind of instinct to take care of everybody well. I think that really helps the female leaders. As for the other leaders, I won't call them bad leaders, because this is a very new challenge that really, I'm not surprised that many leaders don't navigate it that well. But then, on the other hand, I think, the results in the table on the fatality rate, the number of death cases and all that, it does speak for itself that these leaders that we once, these four in particular, know what it means to be human. They appreciate the value of human lives, and they put that first. But the not so good leaders were trying to juggle the economic impact. There is a real fear that the economy will be terribly disrupted and the country will go into recession. But these ladies understand, the ones that we have studied, you need to nip the pandemic in the bud. Otherwise, you have more and more cases to handle. Yeah, you end up you still have no choice. You have to lock down in the end, and you end up being stuck longer, and the economy gets affected even more, right? So they can't wrap their head around the issue, unlike these four leaders that we have talked about. Yeah, and I think in terms of the economic impact, I still agree. I would agree with what Jacinda Ardern says, that you can't have a healthy economy if the people are not. You worry about the people's health and dying and all that, So it has to be first priority. Yeah.
Now, Ms. Cynthia, do you mind the interruption? You have talked about 4 different components: mental agility, change agility, people agility, and results agility. How do you think all of these 4 components come together?
I'm just about to cover this on the next chart, Mariam. So yeah, so actually these 4 factors, right? They enable people to adapt quickly, and they learn. You don't get to be like this automatically. Actually, is learning from experience. So they are very learning agile. They learn from experience, and they become better at dealing with people, dealing with change, getting results, and all that. Yeah. So actually, it's also from a model that is developed based on research of many leaders. I think about 1,200 leaders in the Center for Creative Leadership. And yeah, they came up with these 5 factors and actually 27 dimensions, but I'm only covering 8 here, which are shown by the 4 leaders that we looked at, right? So let me sort of like go through who demonstrate each dimension best, right? And then you can also understand what each dimension is about when I do that, right? In terms of essence of issue, I think Erna Solberg wins because she sees it as a global issue. She really understands that we need to tackle this globally. The countries that extended help to other countries, like China did that, Taiwan did that, they understand as well. We need to help the other countries manage this pandemic. Otherwise, it can come back to our shores, right? Life will never be back to normal. It probably won't be anyway, but at least we have everything under control so that it's not in one place and then start to spread to all others, right? And then in terms of managing uncertainty, I will choose Angela Merkel because she really, there's a lot of fear in Europe when it started because it seems to be like they got hit so suddenly, and it's not a small hit, it's a big hit, right? Unlike the other 3 countries, they don't have so many cases to deal with. So I like it. I like the way that Angela Merkel actually came out of her she's a very private person. She doesn't communicate much. Only once a year, a pre-recorded New Year message. But yet she came out to talk to the people when she announced the measures for this pandemic and explain to them why they need to lock down, partial lockdown, yeah, and why she needs everyone's cooperation, how the death of any one person is the death of a father or mother, a grandmother or grandfather, or a child or a partner. So she made it, she's actually also a very agile communicator, right? But she helped people to understand that this is really serious, is as bad as World War II. So we need to take this seriously. But managing uncertainty is also about being able to adapt when the situation change, like it improves, right? So she's actually trying to help it improve from the usage of a lab, and then she is relaxing things down. And but she does at the same time warn the people that we still need to be very cautious because we can't afford to let a second wave come. We can't afford to let this go out of control again, right? Because there is a capacity that they can manage with in terms of hospital beds and all that. So they need to keep the infection to below 1 to 1. Yeah. So that is manage uncertainty. In terms of agile communicator, I think Jacinda Ardern really gets it because she is communicating daily, right? And she's always smiling and she's helping everyone to feel more comfortable. It's like she's holding the Kiwis' hands, while they are going through this crisis. So they felt like she's really taking them, journeying together with them. So that is really amazing. Help others succeed would be Erna Solberg, because she was the only one who looked at helping other countries, at least from amongst these 4 leaders. Yeah. And then we talk about change agility, comfort leading change. We've already mentioned how well Jacinda Ardern handles this, right? And then we are now talking about innovation manager. Yeah, again, Angela Merkel. We've talked about that. So this is a bit of a summary. Yeah, and then in terms of resourcefulness is again Angela Merkel under resource agility and inspiring others. is under results agility, not people agility, because you need that to do that, to get everyone to work together to get the results. Yeah. So inspiring others is Jacinda, yeah, and resourcefulness is Angela Merkel. So I hope that you can see why each of these factors are important, and why these dimensions are especially important during this pandemic. Yeah. And actually, if you notice, in the center of the previous chart is self-awareness, because this is the foundation. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is the center of, if you don't have self-awareness, if we can go back to the next chart, yeah, which has these 5 dimensions, right? Personal, learner, feedback-oriented, reflective, emotion management, and self-knowledge, right? These are the different dimensions that mix up this self-awareness factor. Basically, personal learner is about someone who wants to grow and improve all the time, yeah, and wants to just get better at being a better version of yourself every day, so that your next day will be better, right? And then they're feedback oriented. You can't grow if you don't know where you need to grow, so you need feedback, right? Reflecting is really just thinking about how well you have done, how you could have done better every day. Emotion management is important, because when we are emotional, we don't make rational decisions. I think you all know that, right? And as for self-knowledge, self-knowledge is really having that personal insight. You know your weaknesses, you know your strengths, you know how to leverage your strengths to overcome your weaknesses, and you know that you need to continuously improve, because that's just no one is completely there. Yeah, we all have areas that we need to improve on. But I would also like to say in the bottom box there, that it all starts with having humility and empathy. Yeah.
Wow, self-awareness. I believe most of us have come across this term, but we know it as reflective instead. Perhaps there's a correlation. Knowing who, you start with having humility and empathy. Miss Cynthia, how do you foster empathy and humility?
Yeah, I am about to talk. That's a great question. I love your question, Mariam. So actually, it really, I think you've seen this iceberg model before. It is a very common model, right? So you can actually develop empathy and humility based on your daily experiences, right? Just look out the people around you, even at home, in school, in the community, you know, who is suffering, who is needing help in the family, who needs your help, right? How can you empathize with your mom, with your dad, or what they have to go through, especially if their finances are now reduced, right? And what can you do to help out, right? So that is how you build your foster your empathy, right? And in terms of humility is not about thinking less of yourself, but thinking about yourself less, so that your life is more about others, right? And that too, really, when you have empathy for people, it's not just having empathy. You should do something about it, and that is humility. Doing something to just contribute to make it better for someone else is true humility. You care about others people. It's not always about yourself, right? Someone who just wants to, hey, what is in it for me? Why should I do this? You know, what will I get? You know, it's not a humble person. A humble person is someone who thinks about others and how they can make it easier for others when life is tough, right? So you basically this captures it very well. This particular iceberg, yeah, it talks about kind of, then, you know, if you continue to have the right kind of perceptions, right? Your perceptions are very important. They may not be the truth, you know, but you end up building your beliefs on them. So it's very important to be careful to have positive perceptions of situations, so that you build positive beliefs, right? And positive attitudes, and learn to manage your emotions positively as well. And of course, have positive values, ethics, and morals. Yeah. So I think this iceberg model captures it well. Next slide. Yeah, this is my final slide. Actually, the leaders are, if I can emphasize it, are facing very new challenges. They need to know what to do when they don't know what to do. And this is a process that I kind of come up with, but it's not entirely mine. It's based on what I've learned from Future Search Network, and also from the author of The Power of Co-Creation, right? So there are 6 C's here that will help every global leader manage the pandemic better if they had done this. Yeah. Even for those leaders that we mentioned, they did some of it, but not all of it. And this is a process, so it is iterative. Let me explain what iterative means. You go through one cycle, starting with connect, right, down to accountability, and then back to connect. That simply means that you can involve some parties first, and then involve more and more parties as you go through. Then you go through another iteration and another, involving more and more different, I call it stakeholders, meaning different parties that are affected and can contribute to solving the problem. Then until you achieve the desired results that you want to see for all affected. Yeah. So let me go through one C at a time to kind of like make it clearer. In terms of connect, yeah, you involve all the parties, all stakeholders who are affected, right? And who can do something about it. Preferably leveraging technology, because then you can get, when you take action, you know, you get feedback, you know, and then you improve your action again, and you get more feedback, so that things keep improving, and everyone is in the loop, so they actually can explain the impact to those who are responsible for decision making. So basically, those who should be involved is based on this acronym AREIN, are in short. A for authority, R for resources. Those with authority and resources usually come together. Expertise, so you involve the experts, yeah. Those with information, all the different parties affected have information to tell you. Like we can see in some countries, some parties have to complain, then only they get, you know, some help from the government. So we need to get the information proactively. And then those with needs, right? The hungry, you know, how do we take care of them? They don't have a voice, right? So really, we need to somehow find a way to connect all of these parties. And then when we have connected all of these parties, we can understand the context better. I know you all have heard of the blind man and the elephant story, right? So this really is getting the whole context, understanding the whole elephant, so that you don't miss out any parts, because one person can't think of everything, right? I don't blame even our government, right? They can't think of everything. They need to involve the different parties so that they get inputs on how they are affected, so that the government can take action, right? And once this is done, you understand what people are going through, then you can collaborate. All parties can give inputs, right? Those with ideas, experts especially, yeah, if they know what to do, they can say, what about if we do this? And then explain to the people, for example, why lockdown, why partial lockdown, why social distancing, so that everyone can then say, oh, how about if we do it this way? Will it be okay? So that is really collaborating, and they then come out with co-create the solutions to all of the issues, right? I can give you a simple example like tennis, right? I play tennis, and I'm trying to get my condo to allow doubles playing, but my condo is not sure because they are not co-creating the solution with me, right? I'm saying, look, you know, condo doubles, we stand very far apart. We stand very far apart. There's no way we can even be 1 meter near each other, right? But because they don't have this idea of co-creating solutions, they just take the easy way out. One only allow singles player, right? So they don't understand the context of how tennis works. So that's why you need to co-create the solutions. You can't think of everything. Yeah, nobody's fault. You just can't think of everything. And then we all need to know then what role do each one of us play. Then we are co-responsible, right? We all need to, even after the after this extended CMO, right? Sorry, conditional CMO, right? We still need to take the responsibility to keep the social distance, etc. Why do we need to do that? So we need to sort of have a chance to give input, and then once we give input and people explain to us, we buy in better, we behave better. We will feel that yes, we should be responsible as well, right? And then core accountability. Yes, whatever the outcomes in the end, we are all accountable. If we don't handle it well and there's a second wave, someone contributed it. Doesn't matter who. We are all accountable. Let's work on it together. There's no point in pointing fingers. It's better that we work at the solution and just put the conflicts aside, because this is a crisis, right? So I hope you have learned something and you can try applying this process to your own real challenges, yeah? Because you will actually learn more when you work on challenges, and you will develop those learning agility factors as you go through this process, because it will be required. You will need to be mentally agile, people agile and all that, yeah? And then you will be a blessing to all those around you, your community, your society, your family. Yeah. So this is what I have to share. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cynthia, for the insightful session about what it means to portray agile leadership during the times of the pandemic. But before we move on to the other panelist session, we would like to ask the audience, do you have self-awareness? Now there will be a poll.
Miriam, did you say to look at the questions? Okay. Okay, do you think you have self-awareness?
Okay.
Okay.
So the poll result is out. Interesting. What do you think about the results, Ms. Cynthia?
I think you have an amazing bunch of young people here. Really, not many adults I have met, have a high self-awareness. And here, yeah, many things they do have. And I think it's a credit to the school, because I understand from my friend who has a daughter studying in that the IB approach really makes a difference to her daughter compared to the son who is doing Cambridge. So I think it's a great, yeah, it's due to
the takeaway here is knowing what to do when we do not know what to do. I believe most of us feel this way during times of trouble or when we face a difficult situation. It makes us inspired and motivated to work harder to overcome challenging times. Now that we understand how qualities make certain leaders who they are, do you wonder how these leaders come into play when challenging times like these persist? Our next panelist, Ms. Karina, is the General Manager of Terry and the Cuz, and she is here to share her experience as a leader in finding the balance between saving the business and the employees. Imagine you are the boss of a company right now, and the conditional movement control order, your business is highly affected. There is no income, yet you have employees and expenses to pay. Is saving the business more important than your employees? What would you do as a leader in times like this? And now let's welcome Miss Karina. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm Karina, and I'm a general manager of a theatre production company. So, in very simple terms, theatre is a two-way. It's a two-way street whereby you need a performer and you need an audience. So, just like how you watch a movie in the cinema, it's on the screen, but here everything happens live. So, I'll just give you a bit of a background about the company. It is a company that was formed in 2004. We write, direct, create, design, work for theater, dance, puppetry, and art installations for companies, governments, festivals, artists across the world. So we've done shows all around Asia, America, and Europe. As you may see, some of these posters are the shows that we've done since 2010. The first one you're looking at was a comedy. And the second one was a work in theater, whereby it is just like the game Cluedo, whereby a murder happens and you're split into two rooms where you can hear something and you can see something. So this is all audience based. And then we went on with another project called the B Project, which was in a cafe. So it's a site-specific work which functions in a cafe whereby a show happens around you and you're dining at the same time. And we've also done a lot of cultural shows for the government of Malaysia, and whereby that happens in the heart of the city. And we've also gone off-Broadway. So in New York, there's Broadway and there's off-Broadway. Off-Broadway is a smaller scale of Broadway, whereby the audience is about 100 to 120 people that watch a show live. And we did two of that 2 years back, and the last one was last year. And recently, we just got back from Melbourne doing a festival, which was held in the convent. And we've also done a dance installation. If you look at the fourth poster, it's called Flatland. It's it's a contemporary dance performance. And we've also done a lot of different kinds of shows, and mostly it's quite, it involves quite a lot of people that have to be in one area. So the last one that we did at the bottom there is Skin. It is a human trafficking show whereby everyone is put in a huge container and you sit really closely to each other and a dance performance happens, and there's a whole processing that happens in the beginning. It's basically just to make you feel how a human trafficking victim would feel in the positions that they've been in. So in a nutshell, basically everything that we do involves people once we put our show together. However, when you build theater or when you do a performance, let's move on to the next slide.
Theater production is something some of us may have experienced in person. The plays you have mentioned is really interesting, especially Skins, the contemporary dance about human trafficking. We did inquire into human trafficking in one of our unit of inquiry, and we can relate to it. Before we move on, I would like to get the audience's opinion. Do you think business industry like a theater production company is badly affected by the pandemic? Please poll now. It is obvious that everyone agrees that it will be badly affected. As one of the leaders in your company, I'm sure you are faced with the challenge of how balance between saving the business and also your employees. We would like to know, how are you heavily affected by the movement control order brought by the pandemic? How does it affect both your business and your employees?
Thank you, Mariam. So all of you get the idea of what it exactly involves. Thank you so much for that. That's precisely what it is. It's very hard to continue with a show when you don't have an audience. However, this business works in 3 different phases. So in order to put something up, to put a show up or a musical or a dance or anything, it takes a lot of work, and it's at different stages, especially when it's a theater show. It's just like a movie where you have to do your research, and then you have to write a script. And once you're done with that, you have to do rehearsals, and you also have to find people that are going to fit the role. So the first phase includes the creative part of it, which it's the research and the script writing, and then we do interviews, and then we see whether they're fit to be an actor in the role. And then we move on once we've come up with our script and everything is ready, and we know exactly what sort of actors we want and what we've envisioned in our head. We will move on to developing the show or developing the comedy. So that involves a lot of art design. So whenever you watch a theater show, you would see that the background has different sets. It would change suddenly to a house, or it would change to a garden, or there'll be lighting involved. So these are the things that we have to work on once we've already come up with the concept. And the third stage is the rehearsals and the performance, whereby once we've already got our whole team together, we've got the actors together, that's when we start on our rehearsals. We make them remember their scripts, and then they start to work on it from there, and the performance start. As of now, in this situation, we obviously cannot do stage 3, but in these next few years, we have a few things pending and a few things that we're working on. So we're actually now at phase 1 and our different shows. So all the shows that we've done have been completed. Shows that are going to tour around the world, we're already ready with it. But with our next shows that we're coming up, we have to go through phase 1 and we have to go through phase 2. So however, although there is a pandemic happening around the world and everyone is affected, we are affected as much in terms of we can't put out our show. But this is where we're using the time to work on creating work, so that when this all settles down in time to come, we don't exactly know when, we would move on to stage 3 and we would start staging our shows. And this whole process takes up to 2 years. So we've had shows that we've written and we've only staged it last year and the year before, and that show took 5 years. So the process of theater isn't exactly very simple. It takes many years. So in a way, as much as our business is affected financially, we still have a lot of work to do, and we're still moving forward. And moving on to our next slide, I would just explain how we're helping, how we're affected. Firstly is because the first picture, when you see, as I mentioned earlier with one of our shows called Skin, we had a first session where we process everyone. As you can see, everybody is in small little areas, and they're all squashed into this jail sort of area, whereby everyone is cordoned off. And this, at this point in time, cannot happen because of social distancing. Everyone has to be away by at least 1.5 to 2 meters. So shows like this can't happen right now. In the second one, it's the show that I mentioned, Cluedo, whereby you split into 2 rooms. However, you still sit really closely. So that can happen as well. The last picture you would see is Skin, whereby we were all the audience were put in a shipping container, and everyone sits on the floor, and they literally don't have any space to breathe, if I can put it that way, where they watch a dance performance. So all this cannot happen because of social distancing and because of the pandemic. So it's a bit too dangerous to put out any of our shows right now. So however, right now we would work on what we're doing in the future. And in order for our employees, can we just move on to the next one? So what we're doing right now to cope, the company is made out of a few individuals. Very importantly, there are the creative makers and the directors of the show, and they are the ones that come up with the scripts and the ideas. I handle the company wholly, whereby I do the legal work, and I also take care of our traveling and do all our visas internationally. The other companies deal with me in order for me to get my company to where it's supposed to be. And lastly, we have a production manager. So whenever a show is done, everything is passed on to the production manager for her to make it come to life. That involves stage managing, floor managers, and costume designers, and all these people are involved in order to put out a show. As of now, what we have done is our production manager, we have managed to sort of get help from outside, as in we've got government aid and we've got different sort of areas that we're going to work on. Our company works in stages. So right now, the people that are going to work on this is going to be the script writers, is going to be the directors. So in time to come, when the show is put into place, that's exactly when the excuse me for a second, that's exactly where the stage manager comes in, and that's when she would put everything together. So her salary moves on as the show goes on. But as of now, everything would be at a pause. Our projects that we're working on for 2020, we were actually going to take a few of our shows on tour, and all that can't happen right now, obviously, because of the travel ban and all the restrictions around the world. So we have halted all our shows now for the next, right up till the middle of next year. And the funding for the arts have obviously been cut drastically, simply because we can't move around, and with this whole lockdown, nothing can be done. Major festivals around the world have been cancelled, obviously with no audiences at all. Shows can't go on. However, very badly affected is the Broadway in New York and the West End in London, simply because that's where the hospitality and entertainment around the world makes the most amount of money, and especially in New York and in London, tourism makes a lot of money, and right now all that has been shut. So nothing can be done moving forward. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the time we take a breather and we work on what we can possibly do. What we have decided now moving forward is we have a few shows that we're working on. One is Split, where you're separated into two rooms. It's what you see and what you hear. What is your conclusion? Then again, this is something that we're working on, and we're taking it to Broadway in New York. And we would actually due to take it next year. However, that's not going to happen right now, so we're going to move it to 2022. Recently, we just did a festival in Melbourne, and now we're converting that into a film, and we're writing the scripts right now. That is Huru Hara. And we have another festival that we are planning in the heart of Kuala Lumpur that we have actually been already working on. However, due to the situation, we will see when we can actually make that happen. And lastly, we are also planning a Broadway musical in New York that will be happening in 2024. And let's move forward. So what we have done is there are 3 directors in the company, including the 2 other creative directors and myself. We have decided not to take any wage during the MCO because we do work on project basis. However, for our production manager, we cannot expect the same, as she has to find a way for the next few months of how things are going to work around, because she works only when there's a project. So we have applied for government aid under the Prihatin Sokso, and she's also agreed to take a pay cut. So in that sort of sense, we keep our employees, but we work in stages so that we don't end up losing anyone.
Miss Karina, I'm sure that being able to retain staff during these times of peril is something most companies cannot afford to do. We are riding this wave of uncertainty together. The government also plays a huge role in relieving people's burdens. Besides that, do you have other plans to adapt the new situation we have?
So what we have decided, thank you, Mariam, that's a really good question. Well, we don't actually know when this is going to end, and we don't know what the timeline is. But what we can do is we can cope with the present right now, and we can figure out how life would be like in a few months if this doesn't get better, or if it doesn't change at all, what can we do? So what the company has actually decided is we would come up with a few ideas that we're currently working on. Since social distancing is the new norm right now, even if you go to the supermarket, I think even if the COVID-19 is over, people are still going to be at a distance whenever they do things. But at the same time, it's really unfair if we go on, just locking ourselves at home, and how many movies can we end up watching? So we have decided that we would come up with theater, but doing it in an outdoor environment where you are contained in your own area. So back in the day, there were loads of shows that used to be played in large cinemas, in a park, or in a field. We've decided to convert that into theater. So a live show happens around you, and you can most probably drive, come in your car, your parents can bring you, if it's child friendly, or like 4 adults or 5 adults can sit in a car. This would be programmed through an FM station, a radio station. So everything is heard from your car, and the show is watched live around you. It happens around you. And once you're done, you just drive out. So there is no contact with people, the outside audiences. In that sort of sense, you're protected. If you want to have a night out, you want to have food, everything will be served to your car. Everyone will be wearing their masks. This is how we're thinking forward from now on, where we can move and what we can possibly do. This is something we're extremely excited to work on. This is what we're working on currently in times of this pandemic. And we hope that once we get all the funding and we get companies to work with us, this would happen in the immediate future. Thank you, Mariam. Can we move on?
Thank you, Ms. Karina, for this amazing session on how you make tough decisions to keep your company together. Ms. Karina, going back to Ms. Cynthia's take on the different agilities that leaders possess, is it evident as a leader you are exhibiting the change agility where you are responding to change? As a leader, you are able to identify and seize opportunities in the changing environment. During the times of this tragic pandemic, the takeaway here is looking at what it means to be a human, and as leaders, we have rights and responsibilities to protect our employees too. Now the panelists would like to answer some of your most asked pre-webinar questions. So the first question is, which countries are mainly struggling with this lockdown? Shaila from FISKL asked this question. Ms. Karina, can you answer this one?
So, hi. Okay, thank you for your question. So, which countries are mainly struggling with the lockdown? As we all know that the COVID-19, as it was what we actually know, it started off in Wuhan in China, and it went on to spread rapidly around the world. And as it started to spread around the world, Italy was hit really badly by the virus. But however, now the UK, Europe, and USA is mainly struggling as the people are out of jobs. Well, that is happening everywhere around the world. But the problem here that they're facing is people are protesting on the streets, and they don't want to obey, or they don't want to listen to what the government is trying to tell them. They are trying to retaliate, and they're very stubborn, and they don't understand the severity of the issue. Already watching what has happened in China, some countries are not listening. So that's the problem around the world that's happening. So I personally feel the main countries that right now are really struggling with it is America and UK and Europe. However, the Asian countries are also suffering. Philippines, Indonesia, India, but they're managing it well because people are listening. However, people are retaliating in the West.
So the next question also goes to you, Ms. Karina. How does the CMCO affect the government and the people of the country? Rajeshwari, Kuala Lumpur, FIS asked this question.
So the countries are basically affected, as I mentioned earlier. A country relies on tourism, travel, hospitality, entertainment for its growth. At this point in time, when there's a lockdown, none of this is happening. So the economy is really, really badly affected. And this is what happens when people have loss of income, the country loses its taxes, the economy goes into recession, there's a high unemployment rate, and people become depressed. So people get really badly affected by this, and it's for the government to help the people, to help with the attitude. However, the government can help as much as they can with aid, but it is the attitude of the citizens, of the people. If they don't want to change, they're going to be affected way worse than this.
So the next question goes to Ms. Cynthia. Can the government provide food and supply for the poor? This question was asked by Metha from FIS Subang.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. The government is providing some aid, some food for the poor. The NGOs are also, I think, are probably doing more. Like I know the CEO of Food Bank Malaysia, and he shares pictures every day of where he's distributing food. So NGOs are doing a lot as well. Yeah, everyone is doing a lot. It's just that I am a bit concerned that we don't have a way of, like everyone has a mobile phone still, right? It's like if only we have a hotline for the poor, if they are not getting any aid at all. And I hope no one is kind of like drops through the cracks. Because I really have someone I know who lost job as a promoter and can't pay rental and doesn't have food. So a few of us friends are just like sharing a bit with her to help her tide her through these times. And I think that's what everyone needs to do. Like what Jacinda Ardern says, look out for neighbors, look out for one another. So even for you young people, you know, you can do the same if you see one who's struggling.
So
what you can to help.
So the next question goes to Miss Cynthia as well. How can we conserve or maintain our leadership at the same time of the pandemic crisis? This question was asked by Wong Takahiro from FIS ECO.
I think I already answered that with the 6 C's. Actually, leaders don't really need to worry too much and need to be in control, that, you know, make sure the economy don't get out of control, make sure, you know, the pandemic, we get it under control. Actually, they just connect everyone, people with expertise, people with the resources, authority to make the right decisions, understand who is impacted, work together on the solutions, right? United we stand, divided we fall, really applies. So that is how you can maintain leadership, by applying actually the 6 C's.
Okay. The next question goes to Ms. Karina. Does the Indian government know about what is happening and are they doing anything to help? This question was asked by Eugenie, Johar Bahru campus.
Thank you. So the Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced a nationwide lockdown on the 24th of March, as we all know. And surprisingly, as many people would have thought that it would be very hard to enforce a lockdown like that in India, everyone has actually been listening and staying in pretty much. However, with such a huge population, that is the issue that they're facing on how to fight it back. But India is basically fighting back with a cluster containment strategy to contain the disease within a defined geographic area by early detection of its cases and breaking the chain of transmission and preventing its spread. So internally, you can't really travel to different states and as soon as there's a case, they sort of lock down the area, just like what they're doing in Malaysia. However, India has also decided now to extend the lockdown till the 31st of May, and the government is providing packages of free food, grain for migrant workers, credit support to farmers, and working capital loan for street vendors. So in a way, they're really helping, but at the same time, it all falls down to the citizens. If they continue to listen to what the government has in their best interest, things would recover rapidly fast. However, the cases now have gone down comparing to their huge population.
Thank you, Ms. Karina. So the last question goes to Ms. Cynthia. Why is leadership important at times of a crisis? In times of crisis, the government can stabilize people's emotions and find ways. This question was asked by Michelle from FIS Subang.
Yeah, as we can see, if you look at Germany compared to UK, for example, because is doing so well, they got the curve to level and go down, and they even have enough space, hospital space to take in patients from other countries. So basically, the citizens would feel a lot better than those in UK. Like they even worry about some hospitals being overcrowded and they can't manage. And you see videos of medical professionals breaking down, saying it's really, really bad. So it's not like that in Germany. Not any of the countries that I mentioned. So certainly strong leadership shown by these four leaders, for example, help the people to feel the sense of calm still, that things are under control in their nation. Yeah, and they are mentally, physically, socially much better off than those who have got like 14% death rate, right? There's a real fear in those places that their government is not doing enough.
Thank you, Ms. Cynthia, and Ms. Karina for answering the questions. So, panelists, I would like to ask you if you would like to answer any of the Q&A questions live.
All right, I'll answer this live.
Okay, so Ms. Karina, I see you have chosen to answer some of the live questions. Please proceed.
So the question is, at times of crisis like this, how can the leader handle the amount of people who need help because of the pandemic while still showing care for the other people who also need of serious help, like diagnosed with cancer, certain diseases, or mental health? Now, if this is referred to the hospitals, first and foremost, everyone that needs serious care is still taken care of. Hospitals have been divided. Now, private hospitals do not take COVID-19 cases. Only the government hospitals have been taking COVID-19 cases, and this allows the volume of cases to be handled by the government hospitals. Now, when you have the COVID-19, you need to be incubated. And these facilities are only provided by the government hospitals. And however, the private hospitals have also helped by loaning some of their facilities to the government hospitals. So in a way, there is much of a balance. No one is neglected here. Everyone is still taken care of, whether you are in a hospital, whether you're in a mental hospital, or whether you need psychiatric help. Everybody is still taken care of individually because doctors still operate normally. It's just that there is more care right now. Doctors are deviated into taking care of COVID patients just because they need more frontliners and doctors.
So, Ms. Cynthia, you may proceed to answer your live Q&A questions as well.
Okay, let me try to answer this one. how societies cooperate with leaders. Sorry, am I muted? I'm not muted, okay. How societies cooperate with leaders in helping the world. I think right now we are at the stage where every country is trying to fix the problem at their own national level. I look forward to seeing when more countries have things under control, that the UN would bring together those nations that are doing well to look at the nations that are not doing so well, to see how we can help them. And again, it will involve connecting to everybody who who have needs, to understand really what are the needs, and then looking at those who have resources, what are the resources that we have, right? And how can we best do it? It's really, I think I've already kind of like showed the model using the 6C to try and handle this together, right? You don't need to involve everybody one shot, but you go with whoever is ready to do something, right? And then, yeah, I think the UN will have to take a leading role because they are supposed to do that. We don't have a one world government, so we need the UN to play some kind of a coordination role.
Okay, thank you, Miss Cynthia. Miss Karina, there is one more question for you in the Q&A. Would you like to answer it live?
Yeah, during this, the question during this pandemic, during this pandemic, will producers of shows or movies have ample time to prepare their planning for later productions? If possible, can they even start to work with their team through video conferences and other sources? Thank you so much for this question. This is actually a really smart question. So we are still continuously working, and yeah, exactly what every other organization is doing, where they get on a video call, on a video conference to discuss and to brainstorm. That's exactly what our company is doing, because to get different ideas, that is the best way of doing it. Now, we have two creative directors that work very closely with each other. When there was the lockdown in the beginning, they could not meet each other at all, but that didn't stop them from creating work. So yes, we did have often calls and video calls to share ideas so that we can develop and move forward. I'm sure that happens with every other organization and every other production as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Miss Cynthia and Miss Karina, for clearing the doubts with the audience. Dear schoolmates, thank you for the meaningful questions. I hope that panelists have satisfied your curious minds. Your engagement and participation are truly appreciated. Allow me to wrap up today's session with some major points in place. The pandemic has not only caused confusion and uncertainty in our lives. Without leaders, we may be still in a state of confusion. The pandemic has only solidified our trust in leaders who strive to make the best choices for their people, and leaders who are not limited to our governments, but also to everyone else who needs to make the best and good choices for others who depend on them. It is a valuable reminder to everyone that change does not begin with others, but with us. Our leaders, as our leaders of our community, play their part. We must play our part in adhering to their decisions they have made. Now, please allow me to summarize this session. Today, we have learned that all the leaders play a vital role during these tragic times, and it is also important to remember that we are all human, and leaders have rights to take care of their own people, even employees. We should all remember who we are. Having self-awareness is a trait many of us need to work on and strive towards. As one of the famous leaders put it, the challenge of leadership is not to be strong, but not rude. Be kind, but not weak. Be bold, but not a bully. Be thoughtful, but not lazy. Be humble, but not timid. Be proud, but not arrogant. Have humor without folly. Jim Rohn. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to again express our sincerest gratitude to our panelists, Miss Cynthia and Miss Karina, for taking their time and enlightening us with their knowledge and experience. And another big fat thank you to the audience for joining us today. This is Mariam Adil signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everyone participating. Thank you, Mariam. You did a good job. Thank you, panelists, for your time and answering those interesting questions that keep coming up. Thank you again. Thank you, Ms. Elaine. And thank you for all the audience who participated. Please sign in, submit the form. Please submit the form before you leave. The feedback form, so we know your feedback for this particular session, so we can improve for the future and so on. So thank you so much for participating. I'm going to keep this session on for another 4 minutes, and then once everyone is once most of them have left, I will end the session. Thank you so much for panelists for your time, and our webinar will come to the end here. Thank you again.